Hi, it's Chris at the Quilter's Nook, and it's time for another Studio 180 design technique. And today we're going to go over Pickets and Quickets. This is a different take on making flip corners. Okay, and we're going to use the wing clipper with this. So what we're going to do, we always make things oversized with Studio 180. So if your unit has to be 2.5 by 4.5, you're going to cut your rectangle 2 3/4 by, we're adding a quarter on each end. So we're going to go 2 3/4 by 4 3/4 for this. And your square normally when you do a flip corner is going to be the same size as your rectangle. Normally it would be 2.5. We're going to go 2 3/4. And we're going to put him on here. We're going to draw our line. Draw the line corner to corner this time. Sew on that line. Trim off this excess. And then you're going to flip it back. Okay, so let's flip this guy. Trim him up here, 1/4 inch away. And then we would press him really good. And now we have to trim him up because he's a little too big. So we're going to turn him this way. And we're going to use our common diagonal on our wing clipper. And he's going to go right on our seam line. And we'll still have our 2.5 by 4.5 inch rectangle when we're done. So he goes on that line. We're going to trim up, trim across. Turn it around, line up your square up lines of 2.5 and 4.5 on the bottom, and the little X is going to be right on your seam up there. Well, there we go. So now you have a little picket. And if you make opposites, you've got like a little picket fence going on, okay? So that's kind of cute. Here's some ideas of things that you could do. You could make leaves with your pickets. You can add little elements to make it look harder than it is, okay? So those are pickets. Quickets is if you need to make mirror image blocks, mirror image pieces. Okay, so we're going to start off with our 5.5 inch square, and again we're going to have our 3 1/8 inch square, and we're going to just line one of them up right here, and we're going to sew after we draw our lines like we've normally done with our magic wand. We're going to sew on those lines just to the end of the fabric. Then we're going to cut this whole thing apart, corner to corner. And we're going to press towards the small triangles. Just like such. So then we're going to take, just like we did before, and we are going to put our common diagonal on our seam. We've got room to trim. Trim up, trim across, turn him around. Line up our 2.5 by 4.5. And cut across. Okay, there's one side. Then we're going to go this way. Do the other side. So this time, let's see, where are we at here? There we are. We're going to use the other diagonal on the other side of the tool. And we're not using the common diagonal, we're using the sizing diagonal. Okay, 2.5 by 4.5. Cut up, cut across. Turn him around the other way. I'll line up the 2.5 by 4.5 inch Your common diagonal is there. The X is right up there for you. And now you have mirror imaged pieces. So pickets are good if you're going to use one direction all the time. But if your pattern calls for mirror image pieces, this might be a way to do that. And here is like a little placemat, and you see how the pickets form across that edge. Plus they're in the center of the block. So you got some nice little options with this. So there's a little bit more waste in this one, but I think it's a really interesting option, something to think about. Another way to use your wing clipper. All right, we got 2 more techniques for you, so we'll see you again next week.